in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, but either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come get it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come get it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hey there, Joan. How's it going?
Good, good. How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. And ladies and gentlemen out there, welcome to another episode of The Review, I think. Or it's Ike and Joan chilling here again. And you should be clicking that like button and the share button because it's about to go down. You should be subscribing if you have not already, hitting that notification bell. So, what do you want this week, Joan? Okay, what is it that you want this week? What could be this month?
What do I want this week?
What do you want?
That's a good question. I want to stay healthy and energized, and to get shit done.
So you want that energy and the vitality. That's important to you, and yeah, that's important. That's a key thing.
What do you want?
It's interesting because I was gonna say that I remember David Seinfeld saying that the same exact thing you just said about energy, and it always resonated with me. And I was like, yeah, that's mainly it. The ability to be able to focus and be present, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, you mentioned the health part, right? The health part is key because what can knock you off of that perch real quick is bad health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then be able stress of all kind and whatever it may be that is kind of keeping you off kilter, off balance. So that is number one. And then if you ask the bigger question overall, you see, why is it important to know what you want overall besides what we're talking about right now? Because there are other things, other games that we are participating in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember last week, we were reviewing a video by Brini Lee, and we said, you said, Joan, that she doesn't know what she wants. What do you mean when people say somebody doesn't know what they want, right? Typically, it's because the person is saying something contradictory with regards to what they want, right? And then it leads to a certain kind of unhappiness. Generally speaking, that tends to be the roadmap of what's going on, correct? Am I wrong? Or
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's important to know what you want, at least at that moment. I mean, what we want always changes, like as we go through life, as we self-develop, as we grow, our wants and needs change. And I think it's important to just know what you want right then and there, because that gives you direction. Because as humans, we always want something, we are always wanting. And if you're not happy with something, you're dissatisfied, well, then you need to know what you want instead of just focusing on what you don't want, because then sometimes it's not enough to know what you don't want to get yourself out of that situation.
Have you found that you can almost group people into certain types of categories or a spectrum with regards to knowing what they want and not knowing what they want? In other words, it's going to always be the case, it seems, that there's a type of person, right,
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be more sure about what they want
Mm-hmm.
than another type. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with competence or intelligence or whatever. It seems to be a different muscle, right? or a
Mhm.
different particular attribute of character slash personality that makes that happen, right? So that's why I
Mhm.
put the poll in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. And again, as you come and click that like button and share the stream, super chat a question with regards to what you want and how important it is. Okay. So I'm asking the question in the poll about whether you know what you want. Most of the time, sometimes, never, always, right? That type of a
Mhm.
deal. But Teal Swan over here is going to give us something perhaps to more to think about with regards to how to discover what you want, right? So, but I asked you what you want, and this week, and you gave me that answer. What is there any other thing that you want this week that has to do with all the things that is keeping you busy, like you're moving around and trying to move objects and people around, right?
Yes. That's
with
been
with
my life.
regards to, yeah, it's you know, you're leveraging capital, you're leveraging labor, either other people's labor and your labor, you're expending energy out there, you're pursuing certain ends. So in that regard, what do you want, and how is that important to know what you want? Like, for example, for somebody to say, you know what, I want to be rich, that's my number one thing. Right? Or I want to be a doctor that saves kids with cleft palates in the third world, right?
I want. Oh, so what do I want this week?
No, not this week anymore, Joan. You can't sneak away. You know exactly what I'm asking you.
Well, yes, I want to be rich. I
That
want
is
to
an
have
that is an
financial
important
freedom.
one, and you can just pause there for the rich thing because because you know what, it's one that it's glossed over or is
Hmm.
looked at with it's either shame or guilt or suspicion or a mixture of all these three, right? Typically,
Hmm.
but one has to understand, like we were talking about, I just mentioned like leveraging labor,
Hmm.
capital, and the leveraging of it is key, you know, to doing what you want to do, right? Whatever it is you want to do, even if it's to feed those or cure those kids with cleft palates that I was talking about earlier, right? You do need.
I haven't seen someone with that in a long time. I remember,
is,
I
is, is
think,
that a strange that's probably a strange thing to be saying, like using as an
yeah,
example, huh? That's why that's
because there was a time I used to see all these commercials on TV, like in the 90s, where it's like donate to this cause to cure all the kids with the cleft palates. I remember seeing that. I was like, what the heck is that? What happened to them? But I remember seeing those commercials all the time as a kid. Or like adopt a child from another country kind of thing.
yeah, I wonder what the money dried up,
I
or
know, right?
it became people kind of saw it all through a lens of cynicism, and it had bad PR and they stopped, or what?
Or they've cured them all, so it doesn't happen
What's the
anymore.
what's the current equivalent of that? Like, because someone has to be sat taking your, we know the typical ads for makeup and whatever. Okay, cool, that's one thing. But whom is kind of like guilting you into buying crap? Well, you could say, for example, it's the people who
Hmm.
claim, for example, to be organic, or
Oh, I know one of
or
the
put
things they
things in
sell.
put things in, rather don't use gloss in any of their wrapping, and make things look kind of rustic and whatever.
Yes.
you know Only matte finish, no gloss finish, therefore, and then just write organic on it on the box, make it look a little rugged, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is natural.
And so the new trend is for every product that you purchase, we will plant a tree. That's one
Yeah,
of the main things in that organic
Mm.
natural world. It's like for every product, we will donate $1 towards planting a tree somewhere. Are those trees really being planted? I don't know.
Yes, these are the ways in which they are attracting you these days. Okay, cool. So you're all right. Let us start with the Teal Swan video here. Again, it's about knowing what you want. Okay, because we all know that observation when we say somebody doesn't know what they want, it doesn't have a good connotation, right? That particular phrase, right? It assumes that there's confusion, perhaps unhappiness, unsteadiness, or whatever it may be. Untrustworthy. It's a general drama when someone, quote unquote, doesn't know what they want. Let's see.
Today we're going to talk about how to discover what you want. Your desires are responsible not only for your expansion, but for the expansion of this universe. You are coming to preferences all day, every day. For most of you, this is a subconscious process. But those people who enjoy the most happiness in this life make this subconscious process a conscious one.
So you encounter preferences every day. But it's what do you have to think? What do you have to say about that? That's the first thing there. It's like, okay, you may say, it's hard to say what you want, but as you go through life or one day, you do have aversions, things you are moving away from, and things, affinities, things that you're moving towards, and preferences, right? Are you aware of those, or do you make it a point to be aware of those, as she seems to be implying is the way to go here, Joan?
Yeah, now that I think about it, we do have our daily preferences, what do I prefer to have for breakfast? Where do I prefer to sit down for my coffee? Like, there's always something where we want something and then we do it. And we don't realize that, I guess there are like the day-to-day preferences that we choose. If that's what you mean.
For the most part, because it's just the last two sentences she laid down was basically that we encounter preferences. For some, it's a unconscious process, and for others, they try to make it more conscious, right? And in there, I suspect, lies everything else that's going to be elaborated on and unfolding, right? The idea that you need to be aware of these, for example, preferences, right? Like that you are exhibiting, right? Because one of these things that we may be noticing when we say that thing that somebody doesn't know what they want, right? We observe a behavior, they're contradictory or whatever it may be. We say that they don't know what they want, right? One of the things that may be going on is the preferences that is unconscious, the unconscious preferences that they're displaying is at odds with some of the things that they may be professing to believe, right? And they perhaps are unaware of this contradiction because they're not noticing themselves. They're not self-aware enough. So again, to her two sentences, basically, that you encounter preferences all day, and for some it's an unconscious thing, but the idea is to make it conscious. I don't know. Does that clarify?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, no, totally. Like, there's things that we prefer throughout our day to day. We just don't realize it until we make it conscious. Like, oh yeah, I do prefer, hot weather versus cold. Like, like those are actual, like, if like the small things that we don't realize that we have preferences for. And if you really think about where we've ended up in life, it's because of our preferences. I mean, I've always preferred to live by the beach, therefore I've made my way here.
And the thing is, I mentioned aversions, which could be seen as fears, for example, right? Things that you're moving away from, right? And a lot of times you're moving away from things not for rational reasons, but just for fear and other things, right? Fear, insecurity, right? So if these preferences, these unconscious preferences that you're encountering as you go through life all day, if they're born of fear mainly, right? If they are a result of fear and these other things, they would generally lead to a contraction, a shrinking of your life and your possibilities, your goals, and all that stuff. Or am I getting into crazy cult leader bullshit artist territory?
Yeah, that's exactly how you get them into your cult, just knowing what their fears are. Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Where you come from like survival mode, you come from, I don't know, maybe a rough upbringing, and or maybe you've had traumatizing situations where you've instilled some sort of fear. And so whatever decisions you make throughout your life, whether you realize it or not, is based on those fears or those traumas or those, you know, bad situations you come from. Even though maybe you may have, this is not really what you want to do, but you do it because it feels safe. You do it, you choose it because it makes you feel more comfortable, or, you know, rather than what you've been through. You're trying to avoid being in those situations again.
Okay, so just so I'm gonna
verse. You are coming to preferences all day, every day. For most of you, this is a subconscious process. But those people who enjoy the most happiness in this life make this subconscious process a conscious one. The people who get what they want take the time to figure out what they want first. There is a reason why, when you sit there in your aspect of I don't know what I want, that you don't get the answer. It's because you can't be vibrating at the same frequency as a question and be a match to the answer. Every time we focus on, I don't know what I want, what is it that I need to have in my life? What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? The answer to those questions can't participate in your reality.
reactions, Joan.
Sounds like law of attraction.
Yeah, so
Manifestations.
that's your, so you got that, you got that motif, you got that out there. Yeah, okay, cool. So I sense that out there too. So now let me try to on BS the statement, right? Because what she's saying is true. Here's what I mean. So we go back to that state of paying attention to these attractions and aversions. You said hot versus cold, sweet versus this, the other, and driven by fear and all that kind of stuff. Bad instincts and crazy trauma, whatever it may be, right? If we go back there, we can see that there is a way of that unconsciously driving us towards a bad place, right? And it's a place of not knowing, right? But if you do actually pause and observe what your body is, what the signals that are coming in, right? Why am I doing this thing? What does this feel? What does it feel like to be procrastinating right now? It's like right now I'm procrastinating, but how is it happening to me, right? So you pause and you see and you notice maybe it's certain, you get the idea. You pay attention to yourself, right?
Like your thought patterns, how do you physically feel like when you're procrastinating, and the anxiety that you kind of build up in yourself when you know you have to do something and you're not doing it.
Exactly. And that is what you want to push away. And when you push that away, you're in a place of vibrancy and energy that we mentioned earlier as what we want, right? And capacity, right? So she said the woo stuff, the stuff that sounded like the law of attraction, saying you can't be vibrating at the frequency of a question and also get the answer. I'm like, okay, I get it. I know, because I've heard this kind of woo crap in many, many different ways, but I know that there's a kernel of through experience, right? Through actually practicing the presence and meditation and all that stuff. The kernel of the truth in there is when you do pay attention to yourself, right? You can get away from that place of like, what do I want? To simply a place of flowing towards the place that's going to give you that essential energy, focus, clarity, which is what you're looking for, right? So you're going to pay attention to what does it feel like, as you're saying, in your thought patterns and in your body and anxiety that you build when you're procrastinating, whatever. You're going to look at that and you're going to work against that. You're going to be like, stop it, breathe, relax, remove that, right?
Mhm.
And that generally will put you in a state where you're not in this questioning mode. You're
Mhm.
gravitating more towards what creates more of this open chest, diaphragm breathing, relaxation, focus state, right? Now, or have I gone around too far the other way? Now I'm BSing.
Yeah, that sounds like this. No, okay. So from the way you explained it and the way I'm understanding is like when you're asking yourself, what do I want? I don't know what I want. So you're in a state of questioning. When you ask those questions, it's because we feel scared. We're fearing the unknown. We ask, there's a certain emotion that arises in us when we ask those things, like not knowing. And in Wu terms, then you attract or at least push away possibilities when you're kind of closing yourself off to that emotional state. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So if I'm asking, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I'm scared, I'm fearing, like I don't know what's going to happen. And so if I'm sending off that kind of energy of like fear, uncertainty, then I'm not opening my mind, my mind's eye, or my thoughts are just stuck in this in this contraction, and I'm not opening myself up, like the breathing out thing where I'm not opening myself up to answers, because when we're so caught up in thought patterns, we're blocking off any potential for actual answers. I mean, if that makes any sense. I mean, for me, when I don't meditate, or if I'm caught up in thoughts, like all I have is just chatter, right? Just all mental chatter. And if I can't calm that down, if I can't bring myself to quiet, the answers usually just come when you're present, when you're calm, that you're able to clear your mind. That's when you open yourself up to what could be, rather than focusing on the thought pattern of I don't know what I want, and then you're thinking all these thoughts, and now you're blocking yourself off from answers. Because a lot of times our answers, we know them, we have the answers, but we're just so caught up in the thought patterns, the mental clutter.
Indeed. So let's continue here, and shout out to the people in the chat. Thank you very much. Go ahead and get those likes up. Shout out to Taboo Smash in the building. Shout out to Gail at night.
Oh, Gail, I haven't seen her in a while. Hi, Gail.
You are literally preventing them by activating only the vibration of not knowing. For this reason, you need to work your way into knowing first before you get the answer to what you really want. The fastest way to do this is to begin to visualize what it might feel like to have the answer. So when you lose your keys, what might it feel like to find those keys? When you don't know what you want, what might it feel like to know what you want? What might it feel like to know what your purpose is? Pay attention to your internal monologue that's in a panic mode.
I'd like to pause her there. She is presenting us with a practice, and it is a meditative practice in the sense that you're visualizing what it would feel like to be in a place where you are, quote unquote, getting what you want, right? And it could be visualizing a punch, right? Or it could be visualizing finding your keys, right? Whatever it may be. And she is saying that, but stopping and then kind of moving on, and then went to the mental stuff. But perhaps we can recognize this as what we have, a roundabout way of what we were getting at, right? So she's trying to awaken in you, what does it feel like to be in that state of knowing and relaxation and clarity? You're like, what would it feel like to have my keys? And then you're like, it will feel like this. And then it's like, okay, well then try to stay in that mode. But anyways, that's what's going on here, right? With the whole imagining what it feels like. Yeah. And then you're gonna perhaps be, what do you think?
Basically, she's saying, to feel the feeling of already having it rather than feeling desperate to have it, you know, feel it as if it's already there, that it already exists. It's already yours, you know, in law of attraction terms, you know, like if you want that big house, just feel like you already have that big house and then it will come.
You see, and then it will come part. That part is that she hasn't said that. And by the way, if she said that, then we would remove that from the. I would come back and clear. You know, I would say, okay, demystify, unwoo, and unbs it, right? But
Right.
but I think everything up to the then the house will come part is true, right? I think that if you put yourself in that state, right? Number one, from a practical level, in terms of practice, okay, it's a good thing to visualize, right? Because you know, if presumably you're doing other things, let's say for example it's a boxing thing, and you're doing all the other things you should be doing in terms of your diet and your exercise and your training and your sparring and all that kind of stuff. Visualization is also a key aspect, right? In a lot of sports and stuff like that, and also obviously in mental activities, mental strivings, if you will. It's also important because it's the same type of thing. There's a certain kind of concentration and certain type of feels that you're trying to bring to the body. It's just similar to just moving your hands and then also imagining the moving of your hands. There's a connection between these two things. But anyways, so all that leads you to a state, you know, in other words, you know, being in that relaxed state or in that state where you're getting what you want is what you want. You want to be in that state. It's like, what do I want? Is it the keys you want, or do you want to feel like you have the keys? Well, the reason why that's really what you want is because in the bigger picture, that's what you want. Because when I asked you the question, you ran up to the hills, right? And gave the big picture answer. I want peace and energy and good vibes, right? but the answer basically is saying, look, then just be in the state of peace and energy.
Yep,
and good
exactly.
vibes,
Exactly.
right? It's like, because keys will come and go, jobs will come and go, inflation will come and go, things will happen, and then you'll die, by the way, also, all that stuff. But if this is what you want, then just go there, right? Because it's all a state, right? And that state involves being observant of, for example, the preferences thing that you said, but then she brought in a meditative tool to say also imagine, blah, blah, blah. But
No, totally. I mean, when you want something, right? Like just go and get it. Yeah, it's like what you're saying. But I think what happens with people sometimes is they want something, but they're unsure of themselves at the same time. You know, like people can want something, people can say, oh, this is where I want to be, but they still have.
Can I ask you something? You said some people want and then, but they're unsure. We can change that to everyone wants and then is unsure, right, of themselves, right? Okay, then go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you can want something, but you're not. You know, there's people that. People will be unsure of themselves if they can attain that want. You know, they might want something, but then they feel desperate. They might want something, but they're scared, or they might want something and they're lazy and they don't want to do anything about it. So there's different ways that people feel when they want something. And so, a lot of people just don't make that connection. When you want something, you just go for it. You know, just go for it as if you have it. You know, be that person who has it, and you know how. You know, you figure it out on the way.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because if you don't want to want it, also that's another direction that you can go. But that direction also requires discipline, which is the interesting part about these things is. Either way you want to go towards quote unquote your happiness, it's going to require discipline, right? If you want to suppress the desires, which by the way is this circle that we're going around. What am I saying? I'm saying that we talked about looking at these desires, these preferences that you have and you're unconscious. Talk about that they may be born of fear and so on and so forth. You say pay attention to them, and this will then give you some space to be able to really see what you actually do want, right? Okay. Then, well, you know what? We have a super chat in the building.
Oh, thank you.
So that there for a second is worth the little pause interlude here in the summary and synopsis. TJ17, great live collab, highly introspective. Thank you very much. $4.99, $5. That's an Apple user, an iPhone user, or Apple of some sort device. Okay. So we are, we're observing this stuff, right? In order to kind of get away from it. But you know that thing that we then said about the woo, about then you get it, right? I said don't say it, but don't say it yet is what we should have said, because then we're saying it too, because the only way to actually get it, okay, is to push it, get that whole desiring part under control. It's almost like saying, well, then, discipline that desiring part in order to actually get what it desires, right? There's that you have to discipline yourself no matter what in order to serve this the desires that you have. And I mean, some philosophers do believe that reason is a slave to the passions fundamentally, right? That, and there's a good kind of argument for that, but basically that you have to master the desires first, yes, but then that after you do that, you'll be able to get what the desires want. Are we contradicting ourselves so far? Are you okay with that so far, or no?
That makes sense. I mean, so you're saying, okay, you may desire something, but you have to discipline yourself into getting what you want. I mean, when you desire something, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go after it. Maybe you might just desire it and just wish that you had it, whatever it is that you want. And when you desire something, you might, we were talking about this, like with passion, right? Like when you're passionate about something, does that necessarily mean that you're going to go and do it and like spend the time doing something? Where we talked about like passion versus like, I can't remember what it was, but they're having the discipline to pursue those passions. I might be passionate about the idea of becoming an artist and like, living my life as an artist, making money as an artist, but like, do I have the discipline to actually make that happen and, practice and, do the craft and all that? So I think when it comes back to like desire, desire might be burning in you, but like, are you actually going to do something about it? Do you have the discipline to attract or like manifest, your desires?
Oh, word up. Here's another super chat. Thank you very much in the building. Do you mind reading this super chat? Who is it from? Don
McKee, 90. He says he will not be super chatted today. So he's donated $5. So he beats the other guy.
Yes, by 1 cent, a whole cent, ladies and gentlemen, a whole penny. Thank you very much. So let's continue here to see what Teal Swan is saying. Now, by the way, we would notice that there's only been a few. We only listened to a few sentences. And then we unpacked a lot of stuff out of it. I noticed that about her, that if you don't stop it, she's shooting different things to different people. Like it's like it's like this is for you, and then this is for you, and this is for you. It's like, okay, so you have to unpack the different gifts that she's giving, because it's not a connected general argument, if you will. But let us continue. So she's supposed to be we're cleansing our palate after Greenie Lee. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
It's like some might say some kind of a racial thing, like a racist thing, like, oh, you just want to listen to the white women.
We're trying to be all inclusive here, right?
That continues to reinforce the idea that you don't know what you want. Shift those thoughts to potentially knowing what you want. Shift those thoughts to letting go of the need to know. Because you can't get this wrong. As you're living your life, you are coming to preferences, whether you know it or not. And those preferences are causing the expansion of the universe, and that's the reason you came here in the first place. So whether you know what you want or you don't know what you want consciously, the universe is getting the message and expansion is occurring. Play the game of...
I'm going to ask you something, Joan. Why do you think that people speak like this?
Like her?
Yeah, people like her, or the way she's speaking right now. Why do you think people speak like that? Because, for example, she's been saying similar type woo type stuff, and then we've been kind of like saying, okay, well, here, here's what's actually makes sense here and what's going on, blah blah blah. But then there's this all kind of like, oh, your desires is causing the universe to expand, and it's like, well, why would you even say that? Because I mean, there's some kind of a physics kind of a way of kind of interpreting what she's saying, but it's irrelevant. It's like saying, your desires is putting heat into the universe. I'm like, yeah, it is. I think it's energy getting burned through stress, whatever. Your ear gets hot. It causes this disorganized energy to go out there into the universe. What is the point? It increases the entropy of the universe around you. But what is the point of saying that?
Well, because she clearly positions herself as a spiritual person, spiritual leader, and the spiritual guru types speak that way as if we're all one, we're all connected, we're all like in this universe together.
She's just doing, because I don't think she's here's what I think, and I think she's just doing this part for like, I'm supposed to do this, so I'll add a little bit of this, like I was saying earlier about what she did, how she speaks. Add a little bit of this in here, add a little bit of that in there, because she already talked about the main point here, which is the preferences which are going on and with how conscious you are of them or not. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the vibrating of the universe, and this, it's like, okay, why? Who cares?
I know.
So, and the sun rose from the east, and it's like, bro.
She sits on the hill.
I'm just trying to stop taking meds. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because she sits on the hill, or maybe she sits on the mountain, or she sits on the clouds. That's what she thinks. So she has to talk like someone who sits on the clouds.
Oh boy, it's
I was asking myself that too, like following certain influencers on Instagram. I mean, I follow her too because she has some interesting stuff to say, and it's funny, like, why do they all have to talk that way? Like, why can't you like talk in ways that us normal humans can understand? They always have to be like, oh, oneness in the universe, we are all connected.
Yeah, that is an interesting topic in and of itself. I think that we might explore that separately, ladies and gentlemen. And let's see, how are we doing on the poll? Okay, how's the poll doing, Joan? What are the people saying?
We've had 18 votes. Well, we got a tie here. Most of the time and half of the time, 39%, and then 22% always.
So most people, as I think was mentioned earlier, that, if you're listening to this channel, you probably generally know what you want, they would say. Okay? And then this knowing what we want thing, is it back to the energy and all that kind of stuff that we mentioned? Because I think that's where it really is the answer. Okay, because that's where this circle keeps leading, I would say, which is in that observation of the body, so that you can kind of stretch out and remove all those bad vibes and influences, and then notice what takes the body towards the good vibes and what's good for it. And the only thing that I will add here is there are two things that are going on here. It's not just about the good vibes, because then you could just take heroin. You know that argument, right? It's like, it can't just be about that because I could just take heroin. It's like, okay, no, because you have to account for time, right? So it can't be just for your present self, but for your future self. And it can't just be for you, because since you're a social animal, it has to be for the people around you, right? Family, community, whatever, into time. Hence, you have to not just be like a good driver or like a good person internally, like you also got to be a good mechanic. In other words, you gotta watch your body. You can't just be taking heroin, right? It's best to actually get to the highs by good diet and good hydration and exercise and good meditation, all that kind of stuff, right? Because that'll give you the longevity in this. That'll give you the time aspect, right? Which is where the discipline tends to come in. I think the discipline mainly is a flesh load almost. That sounds like a dirty thing, but anyways.
Well, it's that whole thing about creating an ideal environment for yourself. You know, the diet and the exercise and meditation supports the clarity and, you know, focus and the discipline that you need. I mean, if you're constantly getting drunk, you're not supporting your environment to stay focused. You know, if you're constantly I don't know, smoking or whatever, smoking something, you know, like you won't have the discipline to, I don't know, exercise every day. I don't know.
Yeah, you might get the munchies and break your diet. Yeah, that happens.
You know? So you need to create that environment, you know, on a physical level to support the inner environment, you know, your mind, your world, you know, the inner world.
Well put indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so let us continue.
What don't you want? Many of you may not know what you want, but you definitely have a feeling of resentment or resistance within you. And what that is you paying attention to what you don't want. So pay attention to what you don't want. And then play a game of opposites. Once you figure out what you don't want, spin it around and figure out what the opposite of that would be for you. Now, the opposite of what that would be for you might not be the most obvious answer. For example, if you say, I don't want to be sick, the opposite of that might not be, I want to be well. It might want to be, I want to have enough trust in my body to know that regardless of what happens to it, it is always in alignment with health. Take time to figure out.
Just want to pause on that last thing there. The distinction she just made there is
very woo.
Yeah, but it's actually so she said there's a difference between, so when you say what you don't want is I don't want to be sick, right? That the answer could be, well, I want to be well, okay? Or it could be, I want to have enough trust in my body so that I don't worry about this sickness thing, right? In other words, it could be trying to conquer the fear, right? You could say, hey, think of what you don't want. And you think of what you don't want, and then you try to think of running out of there, or you could think of, hey, how about I just kill the monster, right? Right, since I'm already here, like why do I have to worry about, because I'm gonna get old and die no matter what, right? So rather than, in other words, it may be I need to get healthy, but also may be that I have an unhealthy fear of mortality, of impermanence, or whatever. But anyways, I mean. That's not, I mean, because you're out there, you're judging her for too much woo, but did I save her or no?
No, that makes sense. And you're looking at the bigger, you know, it's like the bigger picture. It's like, okay, I don't want to be sick, or I want to be well. Well, that's, you know, just like the direct opposite, easy, figure that out. But is there more than just wanting to be well? So then you look at the bigger picture, like I want to be able to trust my body to not get sick again, you know? So it's, she's looking at like the bigger picture, you know, using the word alignment. That's something they always use, but, you know, like aligning her body with health, you know, aligning her habits or her eating habits or exercise or like mental, physical, like, you know, aligning that with what is health, you know?
Yeah. The words get annoying. And the thing about it is, one wonders what is the most annoying thing about the words. Okay, because here's a little sidebar conversation, right? We were talking about why do people talk like this? I think that part of it is has to be this structured argument or understanding of what's going on, you know, in terms of your human, the way your human interface works, your meat machine works, and how consciousness tends to play, and you know what it feels like to be anxious, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And that's a heavy mental lifting that needs to be done, right? So, but there are ways of painting certain pictures of nirvana or whatever, and just generally chakra-ing your way through the conversation, right? That will give people the general ideas. Like you point to, you point to the moon, if you will, and then you can get more people that way. Otherwise, and also some of the people who are speaking from the pulpit, if you will, don't understand either. So they're just doing the pointing and kabuki dance and chakra and whatnot and getting the people. But anyways, let her continue with her universal talk and all that stuff.
Instead of that might not be, I want to be well. It might want to be, I want to have enough trust in my body to know that regardless of what happens to it, it is always in alignment with health.
Whatever
Take
the hell
time to
that
figure
means.
out why things really bother you. My core belief exercise, which I demonstrated in the shadow work video, is a really good one to use for this. If you figure out the details of why you don't like what it is that you don't like, that will give you a more accurate idea about what it is that you actually do want. Begin mentally playing out how something could change. So if you start with the aspect of, I don't like the job that I'm in, start playing out what it might look like if it would improve and continue to improve and continue to improve. When you're playing out this visualization of improving whatever it is that you don't like, ask yourself what would be better. Now that might look like a new scenario in your mind, and then ask what would be better than even that. You want to continue following this until you get to what seems like the best possible scenario for you. And that's what you really want. It is best when trying not to limit the universe to work in terms of essence and not details. Instead,
I don't. What do you think? Well, so she's okay. Let me do my D-woo crap. So at the end there, she says, to work in terms of essence rather than details. So when you say, I don't like my job, that's a detailed, focused type thing. And then you're like, well, what's the better job? Okay, let me imagine. And then keep on just going and going and going. And the more you do that, the less the details are going to matter. It's not going to matter so much the kind of desk you're sitting on or whatever. And it's going to start becoming more essential, as in, well, I feel free in this job, right? I feel relaxed in this job, or whatever it may be. And then keep asking better. And then you get to a point, and that's what you really want. And you're focusing on essence rather than details. It is in alignment with what you started out with up in the hills, when you said that what you want is that presence and the energy and the focus to be able to, the vitality. That's really what you asked. You asked health and vitality, right? And it's been leading back to that, even though she's saying it in this way of, because she's using these imaginations, like imagine not having what you want, or imagine having what you want, right? And it's really about, at the end of the day, does her whole argument of focusing on the essence, getting deeper and deeper into what do I want? What is even a better job? Even better. And then you're going to find some kind of essence, and that's what you actually want. Does that fly with you?
Well, it's interesting because it kind of stuck out to me how a lot of these different law of attraction type folks, talk about, knowing what you want, and then the details, or like in her terms, like the essence and all that. And I've heard a lot of them say you need to be very specific about what you want so that you can manifest the thing. But then now she's saying, don't focus on the details, focus on the essence. So like the overall, what you want overall, like how you feel, like what state you want to be in, instead of being at the job you don't want. So it's kind of interesting how, like, now she's saying, don't focus on the details of what you actually want, focus on the bigger picture. Whereas I notice a lot of law of attraction people say, like, you need to be specific of what you want. So it seems like I hear a lot of people like contradicting their ideas of being specific, but then trusting the universe to work out the details. It's knowing exactly what you want and then not focusing on the how. I can see how it'd be really confusing for people who want to learn about law of attraction, or you know, are trying to figure that out, because there's like what she says, like focusing on the bigger picture, don't worry about the details. But then people saying, you need to be specific about what you want, so that the universe can hear your message, you know, like we'll understand exactly what you want. And
Yeah,
the
I think
problem,
the latter thing is more. Let me ask you, where does your personality fall? Because typically people's personality is going to be on one side or the other. I think that the whole specificity stuff, I think that's the BS side of like the BS side of this particular kind of exercise. Okay, it's good to be specific. Yeah, sure. When I do my structural engineering designs and stuff and whatever and contracts, it's good to be specific. I get it. Okay, but when it comes to that whole thing again of you have these particular desires or preferences, aversions, blah blah blah, and you want to become conscious of them. Okay, I think that the essence and the general is the key here, because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to breathe easy and be focused and be aware and have that energy and not be drenched in cortisol, right? And there is a path to that. Like, so that is why whether you're getting that because you think, you know, you have $1 billion, or you're getting that because you're like, you know what, no matter what, this stressful job I have right now, I could begin to actually, and guess what? Because if you do begin to actually be more relaxed and whatever and more focused, right? You're going to be more likely to get the external manifestation stuff, which is the details. So the quote unquote problem is what you mentioned earlier about the universe will take care of the details. That's also BS, right? Because it's like, I'm not saying that the universe should take care of the details, right? I'm saying that in this exercise of trying to master myself, it's not about the details. It's about just noticing these sea of desires, aversions, wants, affinities, and things that are disgusting or off-putting, or things that you want, right? And noticing that, and that has nothing to do with specific, and then getting what you want in that realm, which you have said is the relaxation and whatnot, the concentration, the peace, the focus. Well, we have another super chat.
Woo! People are out super chatting each other.
All right, what we got? Can you share with us? Is it Taboo Smash?
Taboo Smash.
Got $9.99.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. Okay, got Shozan in the building, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about what you want. It is very important to know what you want, because remember how we started this. We talked about the pejorative, the statement with a bad connotation, which is, hey, she doesn't know what she wants. He doesn't know what he wants, right? This is typically something we say when we observe a kind of behavior that have to do with contradicting statements about wanting hot but liking cold. And this person is an irritant to be around, and they're an irritant to themselves too. They're not happy, right? And Joan sentenced or judged Brini Lee, adjudicated Brini Lee guilty of such, right? Of not knowing what she wants. And so we're asking, well, what do you want? Okay. And then so far we're at the point where it's like, okay, seems like it's the essential. Okay, the essential things that we get via observation of this sea of desires, right? Because at any given moment, you're driven by a frame of desire, like whether it's thirst or wanting to go sleep or whatever it may be, or blah blah blah, or boredom. You know, you're moving in that frame, looking for the exit, looking for the star or the end of that level of that video game, or of the video game. Finding water, then you're drinking it. Oh, okay, cool. Then that level is over. Now what? Okay, I guess boredom will take over, and now I'll watch TV. Whatever it is, you're moving in this sea of desires, and becoming more aware of them is a huge deal, both internally and externally. But anyways, let us continue here with the Teal Swan.
Instead of focusing on the details of your current job and using them to try to figure out the details of your next one, focus on the feelings. What does your current job feel like emotionally?
People will be talking all kinds of smack in the chat for like her video, because of the way she's putting it, like this is feelings.
Are you inspired or are you bored? Are you happy there or are you angry? Do you feel powerless? It doesn't matter why you feel the way that you do. You just want to identify those negative feelings. And now you can use that list to figure out what you'd like to feel. I'd like to feel inspired. I'd like to feel excited. I would like to feel as if I'm a contribution at my job. Perhaps what you want is a job that allows you the freedom to be with your family more. Perhaps you want a job that makes you feel more free. Do you feel insecure in your current job? Then most likely what you want is a job that makes you feel secure. We could consider this a pivoting exercise. Figuring out very accurately what I don't want helps me to know what I do want. And once I know what I do want, I can focus in the direction of that. Have the guts to ask yourself, what do I want? For most of you who are asking this question, you have lived a life where it's been proven to you again and again that life is not about what you want. It's about what you should be doing. It's about making the other people in your life happy.
Uh-oh. Okay. You want to be honest, Joan? Do you agree with her? Do you, I don't know where she's going to land in it, but
So
when people have told you that, hey, you know, the way to happiness is service, what has been your reaction? What has little Joan been thinking all those years?
oh man, I don't think we are really brought up thinking we have to do things for others. I don't know.
Oh, come on. That's a cop out. Okay, that's a cop out. Let me, because you do hear that a lot from different places, right? Whether it be from the watered down pop psychology or watered down pop religion, right? And also, you know, teachers of all kinds, you know, watered down moral instruction, okay? That what really is, it's all about service. It's all about what you do for others. Life is about something bigger than your, okay. So, I always kind of chafed against that a little bit because I'm like, even if it is something bigger than myself, it is still a self game that I'm playing here. It's still an ego. I'm not fooled by the fact of why I quote unquote say, oh, you know, if you did it for them, then you feel good. It's like, okay, I get it. I just want to skip the middle man part. Like, it's all about still me feeling good. Right? Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like, how about I just skip the middleman and try to just feel good without, you know, quote unquote, the service stuff. But here's what I've realized. Obviously, it's a big personality difference, right? There are these particular types of extroverts that are out there that just kind of think that the world, a particular drive that they have, a feeling that they have, equals morality, right? In other words, that social bonding, kumbaya feeling equals morality. And we know that thing. And anything that draws into the individual, is suspicious, right? And anything that expands outwards, oh yeah, that's better, right? And it's just a personality type that I'm like, I'm not that personality type. And I don't like that BS of, oh, you know, what about what you do for others? And I remember in a particular college, this was community college, there was a particular lecturer whom said this, you know, and made us go do service work, whatever. And I was just like, this is total insanity. Like she could not realize that this is just about your feelings, lady. Like,
just to
this
feel
is not
good.
how everyone is built. But what do you think about? What do you say?
No, I mean, if I'm gonna be completely honest, it's really like, I feel like people that go out of their way to let people know, like, I want to do things for the community and all that, it's because they want to feel good about themselves, that they're doing things for others, you know. But it's really hard to, you know, like, see the fine line where are you really, you know, like, they're doing things for others because of what they do, or they're doing things for others because they want to feel good. And, you know, like me thinking about like my business, you know, we do live music for like events, and we actually had it's funny because I was gonna bring this up, but like we actually had a mentorship how was it, last week? Yeah, last week, with like a business advisor. And you know, he kind of like made us really think about like, okay, why are we doing this? You know, like me being like, oh, I want to do good for others is like, I want to give, you know, my friends job opportunities. But then when he like laid it down, like, okay, what do you really want? Well, I want to make this much money doing what I do. You know, it's like, I want to make money. I want to profit. I have to be a capitalist if I want to make money. Yes, along the way, I do give opportunities to others. I give people jobs. I give them, something like to do with their talents and get paid for it. But at the end of the day, I want to make money. I want to make a living. I want to be able to support myself with my business. It's not about like me just, I created this business so I can just give people jobs. Like that's the noble thing that people want to feel. Like I feel like, I feel good giving people opportunities, but I'll feel even better, if I'm making money for myself.
Indeed. And there are a couple of questions on the table, and one in a super chat form. Taboo Smash again in the building, dropping $4.99. Okay. Says, as an intuitive person, do you need detail? Again, going back to that other thing of essence versus the detail. And I was going to mention that particular bias, because I think that it's cool for her and you and me. And what I'm saying is, to the degree to which I suspect that this intuitive personality trait is there, right? And for intuitive thinkers, details are usually, and also intuitive feelers, doesn't matter whether you're intuitive thinker or intuitive feeler, intuitive, details are not really the important thing. There's a general shape, a general direction, right? And then you just kind of go there. You can, in hindsight, say the logic of what happened, but a lot of the decisions were made through intuition rather than what you would call typical analysis of data gathering or whatever, right? You're kind of like, just, I think, okay, well, we'll press more in this direction. Okay, whatever. But that is one question. How is it for you, Joan? Am I correct there that the details of a particular kind, or just, in other words, do you think, let me not preface it, do you think you're an intuitive thinker type?
Yeah, I never really thought about that, because I definitely had my moments where, I'm trying to make a decision about like business, like, we should say this. Like, I'm like, I work with my husband, like we run the company together. I do more of the front end stuff. He helps with the back end stuff, but sometimes we'll make certain decisions where it's like, I think or feel a certain way and he thinks a certain way. And for me, it's like, I really think we should say this, or I really think we should do that. And, there'll be some resistance because we have a different way of thinking, but then, there are times where I it's a good thing I listened to my intuition about something and did exactly what I thought. So I don't know if it was because I felt something, then because I thought this, or is it the vice versa? Or I guess maybe I'm more of a thinker because I do have the idea, rather than like,
but you think you're intuitive in the way in which you think, like you think in general and concepts, or you need details of stuff?
I don't always, to be honest, I'm probably, not really the most, I don't know. I've learned to be more detail oriented.
I think you've answered the question.
Yeah.
By the way you answered it.
I'm not the most detailed person at first, but then once I know what I need to do, like a task that needs to be done, then like I can figure out all the details. But I'm like, no, let's do this. I don't know how that's going to happen. Okay, here we are. Let's go figure this out.
Yep. There you go. And another question right below the super chat is one right here. Do you mind reading that question?
Which one below? The from Nazarene?
Yes, Nazarene Beats in the building.
Okay. What's more important? What you want and what you currently need. I need money, but I want to make music.
Okay, great, sure. All that stuff. That's not like it's not very difficult, okay? Because you live in a nested world. What I mean by that is basically, you're standing right now, but why are you standing? Well, you're standing because you need to go cash your check. Well, you're cashing your check. Why? Because you gotta take money and then you gotta go buy food, blah, blah. In other words, the standing is nested inside getting the check, is nested inside blah, blah, blah. And all is because, you want to live a better future for humanity and your kids, right? And all these are layers, right? So there are layers, and also there are different hierarchies, right? You can decide, like, well, do I want to play the artist hierarchy, which is different from the merchant hierarchy, which is also different from like the warrior prince hierarchy, right? Which is different from the intellectual priest hierarchy or whatever. But everyone needs to know how to arrange all these Russian nested dolls that I just described, plus hierarchies, in order to align, to use a woo term, to the best path. Yes, I like music as well, but guess what? Money is at the top. Not at the top, right? For me, the top is the art and the blah blah blah. But I know how important money is, so I pursue it. I follow the money hierarchy very seriously. Okay, I play the money game very seriously because I know it's what gives me the freedom to be able to randomly record music when I want to, or when I'm able to, or when I'm blah blah blah, or write whatever I want to write, or draw what I want to draw, whatever artistic pursuits it may be, to be able to expand in whichever directions I may want to go. It may even be in the philanthropic directions that you have to arrange, again, these nested dolls and these hierarchies accordingly. It's not a great mystery. But what do you have to say to that, Joan?
So what's more important? I've realized at this point, at least at this stage in my life, that I need money. I need money, although I want to make music, play music. So I've found a way to balance that where, I've also gotten to the point where it's like, I want to play music on my own terms. So I play, I have my business where I get to play music on my own terms. I'm in charge and I play music that I like, and I play with the people that I like. And that's me creating my own terms of playing music. And at the same time, when I take on, singer-songwriter projects and stuff, I'm very selective of who I play with. Does that mean I'll make more money? No, at least for now, until my business grows. But I realized that I need to make money. I need money to be able to do the things that I do and live the lifestyle that I have. And along the way, like, things will work itself out. I keep focused on what I want and my goals. And right now, it really just comes down to like what kind of life you want to live at this moment. And it's, at least from my experience, I guess my lifestyle is more important than just being a musician. Living
money was the second thing you
comfortably.
mentioned, if you remember, like, after, because I think I was one that forced you in that direction after you mentioned the health and all that, and you said, I want money, right? And I think that is one that, since we've come back full circle to that it's more important than it's. So for some people, it's a crass thing to talk about. It's totally plebeian and or bourgeois, low. It's not the higher thing, or whatever it may be. But that's BS. Okay, because money is bigger than dollars and cents. And there are a couple of things which are true about the money thing, but ultimately what we're going after here is freedom, right? You want that freedom and that optionality to do what you want. Money is totally, it's like, I could do this or I could do that, blah, blah, blah. Freedom and optionality, right? So that part is very important, but also understanding and participating in the money game is an essential part of human interaction. And what I mean by the money game is not dollars and cents. I'm talking about the exchange of value, right? No matter how it's denominated. No matter how the value is denominated, whether it's straight up barter system or whatever, there's always got to be whatever you've got. There's always a price for it in the market. Like, whatever you're bringing to the table, janitorial skills, a good game, a gift of gab, good guitarmanship, there's a price for it in some kind of a market somewhere. And in other words, there's no kind of human interaction no kind of human society that you can imagine where people look at everything as of equal value. Everyone is Usain Bolt. Everybody gets a medal, or everyone gets a trophy, which is what people are trying to do sometimes, right, these days. But now I'm on my soapbox again.
Well, like, to just circle back to that question, okay, what's more important? Like, you need money, or if you want to play music. So it really comes down to, what are you willing to do with music? Are you willing to just play all the gigs that you're presented with to make the money that you need, or are you wanting to focus on your own creative journey in music? Well, it really just depends on what opportunities you're able to create for yourself, so that you can make money doing the music that you want to play, or are you willing to do other things to support the music that you want to play? Because that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm doing other things to make money to support, building my business, and also the freedom to play with whoever I choose to play. So that's where I am with my my lifestyle that I want to live, like the path I'm on right now. So, I mean, you can absolutely focus on making more music and make money at the same time. But again, it comes down to the opportunities that you can find or that you can create for yourself.
Yeah, I mean the scarcity, in other words, that you cannot be everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can't move in all directions at the same time, right? And be everything at this. There's not enough time for you to live 1,000 lifetimes in one lifetime, right? This is the basic limitation and source of anxiety that everyone needs to face. And after you face it, then you need to stop asking the question about, there's this need to balance things in life. It's like, well, bro, that's like kindergarten. In kindergarten, you're supposed to learn that you can't have everything, be everything, go everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna die. Right? It's all the same. It's all the same kind of littling down. I think there's a phrase in the Bible that talks about God putting infinity into the heart of men. In other words, our ability to kind of imagine, consciousness can be very expansive, but our reality can only be very constrained by, again, can't move in all directions at the same time, be everywhere, be everyone, live 1,000 lifetimes, and all those kinds of things. So decisions must be made, priorities must be made, and that's why I mentioned hierarchies and nested, shall we say, frames of value. And all that just means prioritizing, okay? Like, what's the biggest frame, and then everything else is kind of falling, all that. And what kind of hierarchy games do I need to play? And I say, hey, the reason I'm playing the money hierarchy game, because I know it gives me that, because freedom is very important to me, because I like to pursue the top of my hierarchy. Really is the whole philosophy and student thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like, that's my thing. Like, that's the top of my hierarchy. But if I'm gonna do that and also do some music and do this and that, then I gotta have a pipeline. Okay, I gotta create a machine that moves capital around, and moves currency and does this kind of stuff, and is an asset. That way, I can have the optionality to do that and live, like, it's just like, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, what's more important, to do the music, or just like, it's like, no, I just I know that things, no matter what it is, whether you're trying to get water from point A to point B or whatever, there's always just limitations in the universe, and then you engineer the best path there, and you take your losses.
So, what do you want, Ike? You want money?
100%. I want to be. The goal is to be wealthy, which for me, I would say the good formula for everyone is to, whatever your start with lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You can reduce your demands, right, and actually get more freedom, right? Because what we're trying to get to is freedom, right? And if you just say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go live in a bus and with a laptop, and I can survive on 20 grand a year, then you've made it, right?
Yeah.
But if your lifestyle is like, okay, bigger than that, describe it and describe all the options you want to be able to travel and do all these kinds of things and all these types of freedom, and there's a number to that in whatever state you're going to be living in, right, or whatever it is, and you're like, okay, you know what, that's a $250,000 lifestyle in Dallas, so that's a $400,000 lifestyle in Austin, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're like, okay, how do you make that passively? Okay, so you're going to be making money actively. First of all, you're going to make $400,000 actively. In other words, a set of businesses, right? Which is key in what we've been saying is you're going to need a couple of streams. It's all with the same question of Nazarene Beats asked about, what's more important, right? So you're going to need a couple of streams, right? So you're going to need to be working different things in order to get that. Anyways, but I hope I'm making sense, and you know where I'm going. Right?
No, it totally. It's funny because we had that conversation too with with the business mentor that we had last week, and we sometimes forget to put a number to it. Like, okay, you want to live in this big house. Okay, how much will it cost to live? Like, I was driving at the beach yesterday, and it's like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to have a beach house. Well, how much is it going to cost to have that beach house? It may not be exactly that house, but like, how much does it cost to have a beach house here in California? Okay, now I want this kind of car. Okay, how much is that gonna cost me? Okay, I want I don't know, like this apartment here, or like this duplex I want to rent out. How much is that gonna cost? So like when we put things to numbers, then that gives us more concrete idea of achieving those numbers to pay for it, right? So like what you said, like now you have to be able to come up with that money. What kind of job, what kind of business, what's going to allow you to pay for those things? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do, and I forget to do that too. Like, I want a lifestyle by the beach. Well, how much does that cost? And I totally, like, sometimes I forget to ask myself that, and that helps you figure out the details.
100%. So we have a question over here, right? Speaking about journaling in terms of asking yourself questions. So generally speaking, I would say if it's about writing, then literally just writing stuff down, then I'm a big fan, right? Behind me is my famous glass board there where I write things. And vis-a-vis questions for yourself regarding what you want in any particular type of communication that I'm going to have with people, a presentation, a cold call, whatever it may be, I always start with the intention, right? Because everything is going to surround that intention. Like, what do I want out of this person, right? And I find that because a lot of times we just want, like, oh, I'm just calling to check in or whatever it may be, whatever. And maybe you know what you want, but you didn't state it clearly up for yourself so you can look at it, right? And say, what do I want? Okay, I want them to hire me for their wedding, right? Okay, but in this stage of the game, I just need to get their number from this secretary. So what do I want? I want the number. Okay, so I want them to hire me. What's my big claim? What's the, like, why, how badly do I want it, and why should they want me? Then I'll say that, and then I'm like, okay, if this is a 5-minute meeting or a 30-minute meeting, it's going to be all about, I want you at my wedding because I'm the best value for your money. I'm going to give you the best wedding you've ever, a way of doing the Donald Trump thing on that very best, greatest, and whatever blast better than Cinderella's wedding. Okay, I'm going to give you Cinderella is going to be jealous, whatever it is. Line that you have. I always write that for every interaction, like, because you might think you know what you want by calling this person, but it's like, wait, if you sit down, and I call it attention, intention, and big claim. I stole it from generally distilling Grant Cardone's certain types of his approach, which is attention is how you're getting their attention. Attention could just be, hey, right? Or you're coming with your branding and your this and your that and all those other types of things, and you're coming in shiny, or whatever it is where you're getting their attention, and then you quickly state the intention, like, hey, my name is Ike. I want you to be, I want to be your wedding band, whatever. So I always write those things. What do you have to say to the question, John?
Yeah, asking yourselves through journaling. So I do journal. That's like a big thing I've been doing for several years now. And I think it's really important to write things down sometimes, because you don't realize what you really want or what you're really thinking or what you're really saying until you write it down. Like we have these conversations with people sometimes where you don't realize what you're saying until you say it out loud. And it's the same thing with journaling and asking yourself questions. Like, literally ask yourself, okay, what is my ideal lifestyle? And then you because you see that question, like, there's something about humans and something like you can physically see or touch, then you're able to actually answer them more intentionally, because now it's written on paper, and then you're going to write your answers down based on what you wrote. So I think there's something about handwriting your questions, because sometimes we don't even ask ourselves these things. Like we may think it, but we don't really, they're just thoughts sometimes. It's like, what do I want? And then you start thinking about something else, So when you sit down intentionally with the journal, ask yourself the questions that you feel like you don't ask yourself enough, and then you might actually have the answers. So I think there is something about journaling that helps us find clarity, that's for sure.
Mm.
And you can look back. You can look back. It's funny. I found this email that I wrote with. I don't know if I told you this story, but when I was working with a professor, she was like my percussion teacher in college, and then I worked with her as her assistant after a while, and we kind of did this exercise like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you want happening to you in 5 years? So we wrote in the emails back and forth. I wrote mine. She never wrote hers, but she's like, let me think about it. She never sent me her answers, but I sent her mine. And I remember I was cleaning up my emails, and I remembered that email thread, and I looked at it. I was like, I wonder if it's still saved. And it was there, and I read everything, and I really still am on that path. Like, I wrote down more than 5 years ago, I want my own band, which I have now. I want to still live by the beach, which I still do. And there were other things on there where I'm like, well, I'm still on that path. So when you write something down, it actually, like, I don't know, subconsciously or unconsciously gets ingrained in you. And because you know what you wanted at that time, you kind of figure out the how on the way. And here I am, I don't know if that clarifies anything.
It does indeed. And I think that perhaps, since it's been about an hour and a half, it is possible that we will come and finish what you want next week, right?
Yeah.
But let's just, by way of wrapping up, see if we can collect our thoughts, okay? Right? She started this off talking about the fact that you do experience a bunch of desires, wants. I forget the particular preferences, she says, right? That these preferences are happening, and then sometimes it's unconscious, but the people whom are the happiest, whom are the best, raise this to a level of consciousness, right? So far, so good. And then we said that, okay, well, this thing involves you being able to observe yourself. Therefore, what does it feel like to be in that state of anxiousness? And she gave us certain tools, such as, hey, imagining what it will feel like if you found the keys. Imagine what it would feel like if you had that good job. And then keep going and finding the essence rather than the specifics, and letting that essence guide you. And where I really strongly attach in this whole tree here is you observing your body and mastering the different ways in which your balance is tipped, or the way which you get out of line is the whole beginning and end of the story. Because what you want, as you said, Joan, is the peace, tranquility, good health, clarity, and all that. And that is greatly, that you can get that through the meditation, mastering your subjective consciousness, developing concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity, my whole spiel, right? And that in there, you're going to be asking certain questions, not such as what is exactly what I want, but like, what's the best way to be right now? Or is my breath, like I was saying recently, I was telling someone recently, I was like, a big part of the whole question is my breathing shallow? Like, the big part of the whole thing is just stopping and taking a deep breath. And when you take a deep breath, you feel your torso, you expand it. So it's like, okay, am I more expanded now? That means, what was I was a little bit more contracted before, right? And that contraction was not good. That contraction also went hand in hand with a certain kind of unconsciousness of how my torso felt and how it occupied the space. A shallowness of breathing is not good for anything. Okay. So the idea is, the more you kind of get used to this deal, the more you're going to be able to get the external things that you may want. And then we went into the whole world of the external things that you may want, what's important, what's not. We talked about things that have to be nested inside each other. I said, for example, you may be typing something, but why are you typing it? You're typing it so you can send an email. Why? So that you can sell stuff. Why? So you can get money. Why? It's because, well, ultimately it's because of my family and my belief in the betterment of whatever. Or it's because I'm blindly following the system, or whatever. But these things are all nested in different things, right? So that's how you guide your actions. And then, since you can't be everything and everywhere and move in every direction, there's physical limitations. and you have limited amount of time, you're going to need to prioritize and decide the hierarchies that best suit the whole thing. Now, it's easier for some people to be clean. We stated this, and you agreed with me earlier about their preferences than others. There's always going to be this group of people. It's a personality class, okay, that are they're finicky, wishy-washy about what they want, okay, and they're always going to be that way. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, now they can always get better, more equanimous with themselves, and more relaxed or whatever. But there's some people who are always just going to have more of a certainty about them, okay. And I think it's probably a thinker feeler on the whole psychological MBTI blah blah personality thing dichotomy there. That if you're more of a feeler, you know, you're moved by values and certain things. Like, for example, if you're a feeler and what you know is that the people must stay together, right? That's kind of the way the people must be together, the family must not be. That's not a clean kind of preference, you know what I mean? Because all kinds of crazy stuff could be happening that maybe the people shouldn't be together, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, or whatever. I think it will more have like clean lines as to, well, as long as these parameters, as long as this constitution is being followed, then I'm down with the program. Otherwise, I'm out, right? So I think it will have more clean parameters in that way. So goes this silly particular pop psychology type stuff. I hate bringing up things that should be 2 hours worth of conversation in and of themselves. But I'll give you the last word, Joan. We broke down from listening to Brini Lee last week and saying she doesn't know what she wants. We went into the knowing what you want and how important it is and all that good stuff. Last words?
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to know what you want, even if it's just something small. Like, I want to have a relaxing evening, or I want this week to be successful. You know, like, you can kind of think in short terms, and then, you know, once you have that, I think that you might actually have a better idea of your long-term wants. But again, back to what I said earlier, when it comes to wants, you know, it can change. It can change. Like, you might want something, then you get it, and you realize that you don't because you have an idea of what you want. So maybe that's where the whole thing about specifics can be a problem, because you might be so specific of what you want, and then once you get there, it's not exactly what you had in mind. But I think just having an idea of what you want and just being open to what that could possibly be, like what could get you to that want, I think that's a great way for you to at least like create a path for yourself to getting to that want. So, you know, write it down, ask yourself questions, you know, I think it's important for us to check in with ourselves once in a while. What do I really want? You know, even if it's just for right now, not in 10 years, but at least like maybe for this week, this month, what do you want? You know, baby steps.
Good point. So everyone, what you can do right now, okay, you got a device of some kind, you can write it down. You can write down the answer to that question on your laptop, your phone, your tablet, or a journal. What do you want? What do you want? What I'm looking for is some happiness. That is Black Uhuru in the building. I will be here tomorrow with Dr. Thunder getting ish done. Until then, we will go out like this. How should we go out, Joan?
Bye.
Let's play Toll Road.
Oh yeah, Toll Road.
Toll Road is a good one. This recording, though, I'm not particularly fond of the vocals on this recording. I think I could, you know, but what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
Recording. Peace.
I travel by night and I travel by day. I feel the breeze, I feel the call, and I see the gravel and the grass by the way. I hear birds and they're mating call. The toll on the road is a small price to pay, small price to pay for the saving of the race. And so I say, people, what you waiting for? Take one and leave one and take it to go. Make a decision and get on the road. Open your vision for the sun to shine on. Bamboo and acorn and a letter I wrote. Big ones and small ones and a pipe for a toe. The rhythms of time is the horse I ride on. I travel by night and I travel by day. Feel the breeze, I feel the call. And I see the gravel and the grass by the way. I hear birds and they're mating call. The toll on the road is a small price to pay. Small price to pay for the saving of the race. And so I say, aye. People, what you waiting for? Will there be raindrops and rainbows so clear? Perhaps some snow angels, maybe a bear. Anticipation in the heart casts a fog upon the road. How far till the train stop? I wish I was there. I glance at the paper just to be clear. All the coming and the going that will be once was foretold. I travel by night and I travel by day. Feel the breeze, I feel the call. And I see the gravel and the grass by the way. I hear birds and they're mating call. The toll on the road is a small price to pay. A small price to pay for the saving of the race. And so I say, aye. People, what you waiting for? Sha-na-na-na no, sha-na-na-na-ne, sha-na-na-na-no, sha-na-na-na-ne, sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-no. Sha-na-na-na-no, sha-na-na-na-ne, sha-na-na-na-no, sha-na-na-na-ne, sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. I travel by night and I travel by day. Feel the breeze, I feel the call. And I see the gravel and the grass by the way. I hear birds and they're mating call. The toll on the road is a small price to pay. A small price to pay for the saving of the race. And so I say, aye. People, what you waiting for?